Hi, everybody. So I am making this video titled The Trans Agenda, kind of a play on words there with transgender. But yeah, I wanted to make this video because I think that there's a lack of information and a lack of allowing people to consider different opinions on this matter. And I think it's important to always question, do your research. And I will say that if you don't have an open mind about this subject, you should probably just close out the video right now because it does require an open mind. And there's a lot of people hopping on this bandwagon right now. I get that. But let's start to question the reasons why. And I understand that it's not going to be a popular opinion. That's why I have the title of my YouTube channel, My Unpopular Opinion. Because I don't care if you like it or not. I'm not here to be liked. I'm here to talk about truth. So let's go ahead and get into it. I've tried to make down as many notes as I can, so I will be reading some of my notes, and it's going to be kind of slow. I'm thinking through this as I'm going, so bear with me. So let's start with the origins of trans. This can be a topic that you can also research on your own, and I'm going to put links in the description box. If you just go beneath the video, click the drop-down menu, and I'll have a list of different links to back up what I'm saying so that you know it's not just me making this stuff up. So Alfred Kinsey and John Money, they were two pioneers in this field of human sexuality. Back in the 1960s, they had their theory of gender neutrality. So I think it's important to start from the beginning of the story, because if you don't know where this stuff came from, it can seem really innocent, but it's not. So they started performing experiments on children. There was a set of twins in particular, and one of the twins they were born with some sort of condition where they had, their genitals were not functioning properly. So they decided to take the young boy and try to raise the young boy as a girl. But the young boy had a twin who was also a boy. So when they started their whole theory, they were basing it on research, let's call it. A lot of their research came from prisons, from convicted sex offenders. So there's definitely some question about the feasibility of their data and where it came from. I say that you should probably look into this a little bit more on your own because it's a lot to get into, and I'm just kind of going to touch over the brief main points here. So some of what they did involved experimenting on these twins. They forced them to perform sexual acts on one another, to look at one another's genitals, and there were several older gentlemen involved that were watching in the process. They took videos, they recorded all this stuff. So pretty atrocious. Just this is, the start of it all. Okay, so here's some more backstory so that you kind of get an understanding once I really delve into this topic. Agenda 21. I'm going to talk a little bit about Agenda 2030 and 2050. So the UN published these agenda booklets for goals that they want to reach by the years 2030, 2050. They have a series of different goal marks. But when you go to research this stuff online on their website, a lot of it's using fluff words. You know, they want to end poverty, hunger, create equality. They want a global organization. So they make it sound really, really nice. And what does that really mean? When you read between the lines, what it really means is that people are the problem. There's too many people, overpopulation. I guess the way people behave and act, our freedom to choose what we own, what we like, what we dislike. So what it really means, what it really comes down to is the government taking control of food, land, pretty much everything that we own in order to distribute things equally and properly, right? So that there's no more poverty, there's no more hunger. What else does it mean? Read between the lines. If there's too many people and we're creating all these problems, we're creating environmental problems and so on and so forth. Depopulation. So I'm sure we've all heard this quote by now from Klaus Schwab at the World Economic Forum. You'll own nothing and you'll be happy about it. Yeah, you'll be happy about it. So let's touch on Executive Order 13603. So you see how they're implementing different laws and different rules throughout history to slowly get people ready for what they want to achieve by 2030, 2050, and so on. They have a whole plan for the globe. You know, forget our individual nations and our Bill of Rights, our civil liberties. So this executive order was signed by President Obama, former President Obama, and a couple of the key points there involving the executive order were all commodities and products that are capable of being ingested, food, all forms of energy, all forms of civil transportation, usable forms of water, health resources, drugs, biological products, medical devices, and labor. In a state of emergency, all of these things can be taken by the government by force and redistributed how they please. So they're not going to come right out and say, hey, we're going to force you guys to do this. But this is what they're setting up in the background. And everything that happened with COVID, that was like a nice little test run. See how everybody, you know, are they going to go for this? Yeah, and we did. We went for it. And next time they do it and they create the next big emergency, because we know most of these emergencies are manufactured, they're gonna get to really take out the test run, and they're gonna buy that car. They're gonna move forward. So you hear all these words, these forms of propaganda, the Great Reset, the new normal. All this stuff is the New World Order agenda. It's all put in different names and different labels, whatever you want to call it. That's what it is. It's the agenda for a new global world order. And in this world order, there are no different nationalities anymore. It's the UN and whatever governing bodies have come together to create laws for everybody. And there's just a dangerous kind of a thing going on where if you ever say that everybody should follow the same rules, that's automatically going to take away freedom right there. That's why we have freedom set up the way that it is in the United States, where each state can have their own rules and their own laws so that depending on your beliefs, you can find a place that does practice what you believe, and your voice can be heard, and you can make a vote, and you can go live in that state where the voting is in your favor. But when everyone follows one set of rules and one set of principles, it's just bound to have disaster. And yeah, the New World Order, by the way, that's actually written on the United States dollar bill. You can find that on your dollar bill. So this stuff has been around since the beginning of the United States. But right now, the US is one of the main things standing in between this agenda and actuality. Because we're not going to stand for that in America. They know that. We have ways that we can protect ourselves and we can stand up to the government. A lot of other countries don't have that, and they're striving to take away those things that protect us. And just to get into the topic a little bit here, masculinity is one of those things that protects us. Men are typically stronger, larger. That's why they're supposed to be more protective and caretakers. So I'll get into that a little bit later, but here is, I wanted to give you guys some actual evidence right here of what I was just talking about. So this actually made it all the way to the US, I believe it was the Senate or Congress, one of them, and they actually voted on this bill. So this was something the UN had proposed the US would take on as law. They did deem it unconstitutional, so they were not able to move forward. I mean, no shit, it's no constitutional. Excuse my language, but what this is, what you're looking at here, is basically forced relocation of the human population. So the plan, remember, we're trying to get to environmental, sustainability, is to create zones where humans are no longer allowed to reside. And in so doing, they are conserving the environment. So relocating humans to mega cities, mega regions, these red zones are not allowed to access. So America being a free country, you can go wherever you want. No, you cannot go into these red zones anymore. The green, those are buffer zones where you're allowed to go, but with limited use. So you have to get permission, special permission. And people live here, people live all over in these spots. So what does that mean? That means taking you out of your home, taking away everything that you own, and relocating you. So normal use are these little green areas. Okay. Take away about half of the land that we have. And ultimately, really, it's going to be geared towards mega cities. That's where they want everybody in smaller spaces because it's harder to control people. It's harder to enact military force when everybody is spread over all across the place. If everybody is shoved into these small areas, these mega cities, it's a lot easier to enforce military control. So, yeah, I mean, this is what it comes down to. If you really want to conserve the environment, you can't own stuff anymore because everything that you own, everything that you're doing is bad for the environment. And forget the fact that there are ways to live freely without harming the environment. Forget that. So let's keep going here because I don't want to get too far off the subject. That's just kind of a backstory there so that, there's some evidence to what I'm saying. So here we go. Thought police. Yeah. So this idea of what tolerance used to be, tolerance to me means that everyone is allowed to have their own opinions and their own beliefs, and we should all coexist with those beliefs. But when it comes to, this topic of being transgender, it's as if all of us are being forced to agree with it. So the concept of freedom is that you have the freedom to believe what you choose to believe, whatever that belief may be. Okay, and the reason we can tell society is run by these forces, behind the UN and whatever you want to call them, really they're narcissists. They're very powerful narcissists who have gotten to a large scale of control. So now it's the masses of society that get to decide what truth is. And you have to buy into that truth. You have to agree with that truth. It's not enough for them to believe that a woman can turn into a man and a man can turn into a woman. No, you have to agree with that too. And you have to call them by their preferred pronoun. And if you don't, you're committing a hate crime. And that's exactly where this whole concept of thought police comes from. So you're transphobic, you're committing a hate crime, you could be thrown in jail or who knows what, but this is where it's going. So gaslighting on a massive scale, this is what I'm talking about. All of this being tolerant truly means that if you don't agree, you're somehow intolerant. It's just like a backwards definition for tolerance. You're intolerant if you don't agree. That's what it actually means. That's what they're trying to get us to believe. So that is where we're going to see this coming in different ways. So if you know anything about narcissism, just to have that topic be important here, because it is, gaslighting is when a narcissist tries to make you believe you are crazy by forcing their beliefs and opinions of events that happened between the two of you onto you. So you're no longer allowed to have your beliefs about reality and what happened. They're going to force you to believe whatever lies they make up. And the reason that I see this as gaslighting on a massive scale is that, I mean, all this stuff is theoretical. It's all made up. We used to have an idea of what a woman and a man was based on biology, based on facts. Now, whatever you feel is the truth. If you feel you're a man or if you feel you're a woman, then it's the truth. It's the absolute truth. And this is what gaslighting is all about. If you say the sky is blue, they're going to say it's purple. You're just colorblind. It's purple. Okay? If you don't agree with that, you're crazy and you're a horrible person for going against them because they're telling you the sky is purple and you are supposed to agree with that. So now society is being conditioned as a whole not to think for itself. You can no longer trust your own logic and reasoning. Your own logic and reasoning used to say that a man was born biologically a man and a woman biologically a woman. But now it's time to trust the person who's telling you what they feel for the moment that they are, because we all know this stuff changes. One minute they feel they're a woman, the next they feel, they're back to being a man. They change their mind again. That's why this stuff is dangerous, because you're making permanent changes to your body that are potentially very harmful for you. And we'll get into that some more later as well. So it's time to trust the logic and the reasoning of the masses. If you want to subscribe to your own reality, you're free to do so. That's what I believe. If you really want to think that you're a woman or you're a man, go ahead. I don't have a problem with that. But by that same thought, by that same reasoning, I am also allowed to believe what I think is true. And what I think is true is that, whatever you're born biologically, that is what you are. That is who you are. You can put on new genitals, whatever you want to do, and that doesn't change what is written in your cellular DNA. It doesn't change the fact that a man will never be able to carry a child and birth a child and breastfeed a child. And a woman will never be able to have sperm that fertilizes an egg. But I don't care if my truth offends you. That's my truth. And you don't care if your truth offends me. And it does. It offends me because I am a woman. And it's offensive to say that all you have to do is plaster on a pair of tits, fake tits, and talk in a feminine, light voice like this, and now all of a sudden you're a woman. Because I've had a period, I've had a period my entire life. I'm able to birth a child. And I don't believe I'm just my body and I'm just my breasts and my vagina, although those are my biological sex organs, sorry. It offends me that that's all you have to do. And now all of a sudden you didn't have to go through any of the stuff that women actually go through, but you feel you're a woman. So, I'm sorry if me not agreeing with you offends you, but if we're all allowed to have our own reality, that's my reality, and that's where I'm staying. So let's go back to the New World Order thing a little bit here. So the Illuminati, the organization that I believe are behind all of this stuff, pulling the strings, they've got their puppets that are the political leaders, but the ones with the real power will probably never be revealed to all of us. I mean, yeah, some of them are in the light, but the Illuminati's overall principle is ordo ab chaos, order from chaos. So they believe that basically good and bad are both necessary to balance each other. And by creating negative situations, chaos, they can enforce order, a new order. And that's pretty much what happens in all these emergency situations. And going back to the executive order, all they have to do is fabricate some emergency and they can install their new order. And the new order is that you're not allowed to go where you want. You have to stay at home unless you are somehow contributing to society in a necessary way, and the rest of us are all just garbage, I guess. So I believe all of that is really an agenda cover for Satanism. Really, that's what they are. They're Satanists. They believe that good and evil are both equal, basically, is what they believe. They're both a good thing somehow. Evil can be used for good. And we know that's not true, especially as a Christian. We know that two wrongs don't make a right, and evil is not justified for a cause. Evil is just evil. So if you just allow people to be good, then maybe we could actually see that we are capable of living in harmony with the earth. But that's not the way that they want to go about it. They want to go about it by forcing us through these fabricated events. And really this lie comes from Satan himself, who sees God as his equal, when really he is just one of God's fallen creations. So let's continue on. The war on masculinity and femininity. Because really, this being a transgender, it's not masculine or feminine anymore. You're not a woman or a man, you're a transgender. It's a third gender. I mean, we all know that. You cannot turn a man into a woman. It's not physically possible. I'm sure they wish it was, but there are laws, universal laws in place that God put into place. You can't do certain things. And the reason of the war on masculinity is because we're completely helpless at that point. If there's no men that are going to stand up and protect the women and stand up and fight, then we're helpless against the government. That's really what this is about. It's about disarming us by taking away the idea of masculinity and femininity to disarm us. And they put estrogen in the food and water supply and just feminizing the way that men think to the point where they're just so cowardly that they won't stand up and protect others, because there are positive sides to masculinity and femininity. And it's sad that the negative traits of masculine are being brought up in women, and same likewise. It's like when you remove the masculinity from a man, all that's left over is the bad parts of masculinity. All that's left over is a guy that won't stand up and won't protect and won't provide all those things that, you know, are actually really good qualities about men when they don't when they don't abuse it. So how does this connect to depopulation? The next point here. I mean, basically what transgenderism is castration. They will give you inhibitors, hormone inhibitors that will prevent you from ever having children, most likely. There's issues that arise from transgenderism, such as mental issues, infertility, and there's actually like a 67% rate of complication right now, I believe, with the gender reassignment surgery that is lethal. So 67% of them will actually die. And it's sad because they're getting people to go along with this like it's so fun, and it's just, there's nothing bad that can happen to you. But the truth is that these hormone inhibitors and giving men female hormones and opposite are completely experimental. And when something is experimental, it's gonna lead to a lot of deaths. And furthermore, they're making it so you can't reproduce, which goes along with the depopulation agenda. So, back to the gender roles. Really, to me, it's reinforcing gender roles, because there's nothing wrong with being a man who has some feminine traits or being a woman who has some masculine traits. But when you say, I have to reassign my body to match these traits, you're actually reinforcing the gender roles that you are claiming to tear down. If it doesn't matter what your body is and you can change it, then why, why even have gender roles at all? So how does changing your body make the definition of you being a woman or a man any different? If you don't believe that your body defines you as a man or a woman, then why are you changing your body so that you can claim that you're a man or a woman? And the other thing with gender roles is that now women are having to compete against men. And they're not just competing against men, but they're competing against something that is completely fake and manufactured. How can you as a woman compete against a man in a beauty competition if his body is entirely manufactured? You know, he's got the big old boobs and the big butt, and his face was rearranged to look however he wanted it to. How is that fair? How is it fair for a woman to compete against a man in sports when we know that there are biological differences between women and men's body? It is harder for men to put on fat. It is harder for women to build muscle. And lastly, trans. I mean, a lot of this is contradiction. If there are only two genders, I mean, there is only two genders. You know, the truth is that these people are neither male or female. They're something else entirely. They can't reproduce anymore. And so, yeah, once again, if roles and body parts do not define gender, then why do we have to change ourselves to fit into this box of what it means to be a man or a woman? It's just, the whole thing is a contradiction. And let's go on to the next slide, which is where all of this stuff is going. So outside of the depopulation agenda, there's other things that are starting to occur. And when you have a whole group of people that say, I can decide whatever my reality is, I can decide what I am, who I am, based on my thoughts, not based on any factual evidence, that opens a whole Pandora's box. It really does, a dangerous box. So let's start off here. Transspeciesism. We've already seen that with the furries trend. Children in schools and adults claiming to be animals. When all this stuff started with the transgenders, I knew all this stuff was going to happen, and people called me crazy. Oh no, just because we're doing it with gender doesn't mean we could do it with species. Doesn't mean we could do it with races. You know, these other things. But I knew it was only a matter of time, and it is happening. It's happening. And what's dangerous about that? Okay, well, if you're now a cat, then are you allowed to have like intercourse or sexual relations with a cat? I mean, you are a cat. You said you're a cat, so you're a cat. So is this gonna return us to a time of bestiality? And a lot of this stuff happened before the flood, before God flooded the earth. Humans were doing this stuff. They were doing bestiality. And that's part of the reason why God decided to wipe us all out. Because it was horrid. It was atrocious. That was not what we were designed for. But seems we're reverting. We're reverting back to that because we've taken God out of society. And when you take God out of society, this is what happens. Okay. So then the transracism. Once again, this actually has happened. I will put links to stories that I can find on this, but there was a case of a British man who turned Asian. So what's the purpose of race anymore, right? And this kind of, it also supports the agendas, because if there's no more race, then there's no more nationality, really. There's no more origin anything. Everybody can be anything that they want. Everybody is this one global group. Everything is interchangeable. So if you feel that you're Asian, then you're Asian. And you get some surgery to make you look Asian. And it's just kind of sick, because it's like, what is wrong with being how you were born? Why do we have to mutilate our bodies? Self-mutilation is, to me, never a good thing. It's never a good thing. It's a sign of mental disorder. It's just mental sickness when you want to hurt your own body and mutilate your own body. And then transageism. This is also becoming a huge trend. You know, women and men identifying as babies. And really, mentally, they are babies. Mentally, they are children, because they have never grown up. But now, that can be accepted. You know, there's a group that will accept you for that. Accept you for being immature and childish and never mentally growing up. Yeah, they wear diapers, they put a binky in their mouth, and now you have to believe they're a baby. They could be a 80-year-old man, but they feel young. And because they feel this way, now you have to go along with it. And of course, some of this other stuff, this is more on the fringe. It's not fully accepted by society yet, but this is where we're headed. And if you're going along with this transgender stuff, this is what you're also agreeing to. You're agreeing to all of it, because it's no longer facts. It's feelings. Feelings are facts. And we know with narcissists, feelings are facts. There's just I'm just trying to, you know, show people how these things are related. These narcissists are in charge of society. They're in charge of all this stuff. And the sick part about the transageism thing is that it opens the door to pedophilia. Yeah, let's be real about this. If you're saying that you're a child, you're mentally 7 years old, and you identify as a 7-year-old, well, eventually, what is going to stop you from being with a 7-year-old? Because if you don't agree that that person is 7 years old, you're committing a hate crime. And sadly, people aren't seeing this for what it is. Transhumanism. So no longer even identifying as something human or identifying as an inanimate object. There's people that are identifying as demons, dolls. They can identify as a doll. Even the whole they them thing. It's when you call somebody an it, you're no longer even human. And that's really the truth, is that you are no longer human. You're some modified organism. And I'm going to get into that too, why that's important. So hold on to that. What I believe is the truth is that they really are demons. They are demons, and the demons inside these people are speaking out, and they are saying, "Hi, I'm here. And you have to accept that I'm here now." Because they're no longer hiding. They don't have to hide anymore, because the majority of us are going along with this stuff. So now, this person identifies as a demon, and you have to call them a demon. And, I mean, really, that actually is the truth right there. These demons are possessing people, and they're not afraid anymore. They're not afraid of saying, "Hi, I'm here," because the world doesn't actually believe in that stuff. I mean, it's like they pretend to believe in it, but if you really believed in it, you would not be going along with this stuff. So, the spirit world hell is starting to leak into this world. I believe humans are naturally evil. Without God, we are naturally evil and selfish. God is the spirit of God is the only thing that is good in us. And we will continue to stoop down to lower and lower levels of humanity. And, you know, another thing that I saw kind of matches between this whole demon thing is that I don't believe demons have a gender either. Demons are basically fallen angels, and they don't have a physical body. So if you don't have a physical body, then you're not man or female. You're not man or woman. And so demons, they don't reproduce in the same way that a human does. They aren't sexual creatures. They can inhabit a person, they can possess a person, and they can have sex that way. But that's the only way for them to be able to take part in that physical act of pleasure that humans do, is through possession. And clearly they are less afraid to be known because they know their time is coming soon where mankind will bow down to them as gods. Because most of the world, well, a lot of the world, if you don't believe in Christ, or you believe Christ hasn't come yet, or the Messiah hasn't come yet, then you will be duped when the Antichrist comes. And you'll think that the Antichrist is the savior. And yeah, people are gonna start bowing down to these demons. So they are not afraid to be known anymore. And these people who are claiming to be demons and, saying wanting to be a demon, they are knowingly or unknowingly handing over their souls to the devil, literally. And they are they're open vessels for possession. We all have free will, so a demon cannot come into you unless you allow it to. They need consent. They need consent through sin. And that's exactly what we're giving them. And yeah, demons definitely enjoy the earthly pleasures that come with inhabiting a physical body. Sexual perversion, mainly. Anything that we see as good and holy in a sexual act, they can pervert. And that's why they can do all these things, the pedophilia and the bestiality. And really, all this stuff is headed to a place where I believe humans will be able to be owned. If you continue along that same thought of logic, humans are not allowed to be owned because they are natural creatures. Anything that's a law that humans are not allowed to be owned. But genetically modified organisms can be patented and owned. Only what is natural has freedom. What is man-made no longer has that freedom. So, and the ownership of people, it all ties into the mark of the beast and people no longer having free will. The other side of the transhumanism is mixing flesh and technology. So artificial intelligence, nanotechnology, physical implants. I mean, we have such an ego that we believe we can outsmart nature. Somehow we can do it better. I mean, if you really think about it, to be in harmony with nature, all that requires is to succumb to the rules of nature and to go along with them. But we are so fighting that. We are fighting everything when we're saying that we're doing all this stuff so that we can protect the environment. That's the only thing that's getting in our way. Because when we start thinking that we can do better than better than nature, and we can design our own bodies and we can decide what we are, everything that we touch, we ruin. Everything that we put our human will over, we destroy. It's God's will that saves us. It's nature that saves us. It's nature that keeps everything in balance. You cannot fight nature. This is a war against nature and what is natural. That's what this is. And it's masked behind all of this stuff, because that's what narcissists have to do. They have to hide. If they came out and said, we want to kill everyone and control everyone, no one would go along with it. But when they say, oh, we want to help you, we want to end world poverty, then you go along with it. And you'll give up every right that you have in the process, even your right to think for yourself. And as everybody is so distracted by their fears, the fears that keep being pushed on us, we're not paying attention to everything that is going on in the background. They're removing information from the internet. They're scrubbing information as much as they can. They're controlling information, what people are allowed to say and not say. I mean, I'll be surprised if my video is even allowed to stay up online. They're increasing artificial intelligence and spyware. They're gaining access to our bodies, to our day-to-day lives, and getting you to ultimately give up your identity as a human being. So, my closing thoughts on this stuff. You know, you've got these lobbying companies who have financial incentives behind all of this transgender stuff. They are getting paid thousands of dollars for these gender reassignment surgeries that ultimately usually end up in the death of the person. And that's all they see it as, is this is another way to make money. This is another way that they can get rich off of us. And in the process, they can get every other agenda, you know, going through. And They're passing laws that are permanently disfiguring children. To me, this is child abuse. If you send your child into school now, they will tell them, they'll give them a list of like 100 different genders, all made up. And this child is so confused. This child is still trying to learn what they are and who they are. They don't know. They're still figuring it out. And then they're given this whole list of, oh gosh, I have to choose what I am. Oh, I want to be a unicorn today. Because the children have such imaginations, right? So they're going to identify as a unicorn now. Or if they choose to change their gender, they're making a decision that will affect them for the rest of their lives. And they don't even have a fully developed frontal lobe yet. And the frontal lobe is the part of the brain that is able to make reasoning and logic and long-term decisions. So these children no longer get innocent childhoods where they don't have to have sex involved and they can just be innocent children. No, they're going to be barraged with sexuality, perversion, basically the ability to overrule their parents' reality. Because now the child is put in the position of power. Because if you as a parent try to tell your kid, no, 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 that's not what we believe in this household, they can take you away from your children. They can take your children away from you. But yeah, I mean, these children, they don't even understand the decisions that they're making. They're too young to understand the depths of sexuality and all of these things. They're just innocent children. And they're making this decision that could potentially make it so they never have children, so they never have a normal life. And they can't even comprehend those things because they don't have a fully developed brain. So letting a child make these kinds of decisions, those are the decisions that are supposed to be the parent. This is why children have parents. Because children they're not autonomous. They cannot take care of themselves. They need parents to tell them what is wrong and right, to teach them. That is the parent's job. But the government is stepping in and saying, no, the child gets to decide, and we get to decide what the truth is. You do not get to decide anymore for your children. And this is also part of the agenda because it's breaking apart the family system. And it's letting the child take over as the dominant figure in the household. Because you're pairing the child with healthcare workers who've been assigned as the role of the parent, if it gets to the point where the child gets taken away. There was a story of a man in Canada who was put in jail because against his will, the doctors started administering the sex change without the consent of the parent. And because the child knows best, right? This 6-year-old child knows better than their parents. Yeah. This child whose frontal cortex isn't even evolved enough is now making a permanent, life-altering decision. I mean, this is why we have rules against drinking at a young age and voting and all of these things. So why is this okay? If you can't even drink, I mean, do you want to start putting alcohol in their baby bottles if they say they want some alcohol? No. So why is this any different? Why is this decision somehow okay for them to make for themselves? Yeah, I mean, they're making a decision to permanently disrupt their own fertility. And when they get older, they could be completely devastated that they can't ever have children. When they learn that and they actually realize what's going on, I can never have children. Now that is something that could cause suicide. I mean, talk about this stuff being detrimental on people's mental health. That is devastating. That's devastating. And we haven't even fully been able to understand and the consequences of this stuff long term because it hasn't happened long enough. Enough time hasn't gone by for us to do research on how many of these people are going to end up changing their minds and doing really horrible things to themselves afterwards. And yeah, that's what it's about. It's time to ditch reality and hop on the trend wagon. Because there used to be a definition of gender dysmorphia that classified it as a mental disorder. And I think something like maybe 1 or 2% of the population actually has this disorder. And it's characterized by a very specific set of regulations and rules. Like something like they have to start under 2 years old saying this stuff. But the thing is now you can't tell the difference between somebody who actually has gender dysmorphia, which should be a treatable condition, and someone who is just confused and hopping on this trend because that's what everybody likes to do. They like to hop on the new trend. So it's no longer 2% of people. It's a large, vast numbers of people doing this stuff now. And it's just a dangerous thing. So that pretty much wraps it up for me. And I'm going to put as many links as I can below. I do apologize that I'm not the best public speaker. And I know that, but at the same time, I think it's really important to talk about this stuff in any way that I can. Because I don't think there are enough people questioning this stuff. And on this channel, I really want to talk about narcissism from a spiritual perspective and on a much deeper scale than I believe a lot of people are. I want to talk about it on a societal scale. And yeah, it's scary, the power these narcissists have. And that's really what they are. They create all these secret societies and so they can hide and pretend. And they can take control of everybody in any way that they want, because that's what a narcissist wants ultimately, is control and power. And they will destroy all of us to get it. And they don't care. They don't care if it's ruining reality for the rest of us. So I do urge you to do some more research on everything that I've said. Don't take my word for it. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.